biggest bunch of misfits I ever set eyes on.
Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into another episode of the Misfit podcast. On today's show, we are talking about leveling up. What does it take to get from an open athlete to a quarterfinals athlete to a semifinals athlete, and so on down the line? We're going to talk through it from a few different perspectives: coaching, experiencing, sort of how this goes as an athlete. And we're going to use the 2024 season to give us some data on this to be able to talk through it and potentially notice some patterns related to it. I will throw a spoiler and a warning out there. There is a lot of GPP propaganda in this episode. A lot of athletes believe that if they get their first muscle up or they snatch 200 pounds, whatever it is, that they are now going to be at that place. And I can tell you, as someone whose fitness is basically backwards in that way, it definitely does not work that way. I promise. Before we get into that, as always, a little bit of housekeeping. I want to start out with shout out of the week. I made a post yesterday on Instagram, and it's something that's been percolating for a long time. I was excited to write it and post about it, but it's the idea of us saying that the rain or shine call to action was more of a behavior that we were looking for in phase 1, 2, and 3, where it's like, hey, you guys, every once in a while, it's like, how the heck did Paige get there? Like, how is McKenna so fit? Why is Kyle beat me every day? And consistency. Like, that's the name of the game. When we're looking at patterns of how athletes make it to where they make it, so often it's about consistency. So my hope was that people could realize that when you're not having the best day, you're not having the best week, that you can still go in and get after it. And you build this resilience, you build this, like if you think of the calluses on your hands, you can think about it sort of becoming calloused as a human to be able to go in and withstand those things. And if you did that in phase 1, 2, and 3, if you really showed up, you really did the work, you really got after it, what I'm hoping is that you understand that you've earned the right to turn that into a mindset. And one of the things, related to this episode, the idea of leveling up, is that ability to go from what I do in the gym to what I do in the competition floor. And so many people get wrapped up in, oh my goodness, this isn't fair. Why are they programming these movements? Or why do I have the sniffles on 24.2? Whatever it is, if we get bogged down in those things, we can allow ourselves to regress to a previous version of ourselves. And that's always a bummer to me, because you guys have created this new version of yourself. And I want you to bring your mindset along with what you've created physically. So the rain or shine mindset is, I don't really fucking care what the workout is, what the time domain is, what the movements are, how I feel today, how I felt yesterday, how I'm going to feel tomorrow. I have created a version of myself that is better than the one that previously existed, and better than the people that don't show up as often as I do. And if you believe in that before anything is ever announced, you have a much better chance of expressing that when the time comes. And I've witnessed it in both directions, right? You got the person who doesn't have the rain or shine in training, and then their ego's like, wow, this workout looks great. And you're, as the coach, like, I'm glad they feel that way. I don't know why they feel that way. And then you've got the person who trained their ass off and is super ready and good to go, and the workout gets announced and they throw their papers up in the air and they're like, fuck this, I can't do this. So we have a little bit of time left, not a lot. Little bit of time left to adopt that mindset. And I promise you that if you did the work, you have earned that mindset. And fuck those people that didn't earn it, that have the ego. You are fitter, stronger, more skilled than them. And we need your mind to join that party. And then you will be able to execute.
Got a few F words in there, and the podcast just started, guys. So be in for it.
I'm fired up.
He's in for it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's hard to top. I don't know if I can really say anything much more than that, but it's time to not just talk about it, but be about it. And I'll forever remember that from Kenzie. Kenzie's just that person who doesn't matter what the workout is. She can be bitching about it right beforehand, but 3, 2, 1, go. Like, that girl is
that's true.
dead
She's
serious.
the anomaly, right? She's
She
the
is the
throws her
anomaly.
papers up in the air and then whacks you, and it's like, wait, what?
But she does know how to put her head down. And
Yes,
this is that time.
Very true.
I'll give a quick shout out to, I'm not even going to try to say his last name because I'll butcher it, but he's also known as Pete Naz.
Mm-hmm.
He's
Yep.
just posting back into Telegram. Looks like he took a bit of a hiatus. So I like when people, they can take some time away and then they're like, dude, I got to get back in there. So shout out to him for getting back in. Sounds like he's been doing some of the work in the shadows, which we all know what that's like here. So yeah, just a quick shout out to that guy.
Welcome back, Pete. So we always talk about at the beginning of the episode how to support the podcast, Misfit Athletics, all of the things that we do. The best way to do so is by following our programming, and quarterfinals prep started when this podcast drops. It'll be just a couple days ago. You can absolutely jump in. Free trials are still live on Fitter and Strivey. And I wanted to do a little highlight of the week with quarterfinals prep week 1. Paige, you wrote a little ditty that's got some shuttle runs and some deadlifts in it. I don't have it up right now, but I believe it's 8 rounds, 10 shuttle runs, 8 deadlifts.
Mm-hmm.
What's the weight?
225, 160.
225, 160.
Mm-hmm.
And she's the one who rounded up to 160. So this is not discrimination. This workout is fascinating because there's like 8 minutes of running and like 8 seconds of deadlifting, but it's still 64 deadlifts at, a moderate weight, and the weight's heavier on the pro program, a little bit lighter on the master's program. And I like it's obviously going to be a stimulus bomb because you're either going to run too fast and be out of breath and going to have to deal with that, or you're going to be running a little bit too slow, crushing the deadlifts, and then you're going to get to push, which is, I think, kind of what we're looking for in this workout. Really good notes, by the way. Do you still have it up? Can you read the Athlete IQ notes that are in there?
So it says, Athlete IQ, execution matters here. Prioritize clean, efficient movement and quick transitions between the shuttle runs and the bar. Deadlift should stay unbroken throughout. Open at a controlled pace in the early rounds, then gradually build speed as you find rhythm. This is a workout where smoothness early allows you to push late.
Yeah. And that is I think one of the reasons why we talked through adding that note page is because it's so hard to feel fresh and jog slow. Or at least, what's funny is like the fast, if we're looking at the 6 second roughly, maybe a little bit less, when you're really cruising on a shuttle run, and then we get into those like painfully slow ones once you're tired, there's this like happy medium in the 6 to 7 second range where it is sustainable, but it feels slow when you start. Running's like that in almost all instances, but especially when you're jogging 25 feet at a time. So at the beginning, just annihilating the deadlifts. Obviously, we want them to be full range of motion, but just that transition in and out, just being like perfect and seamless. And then as the rounds start to go, you start to push. And the funny thing is, you might think you're running faster later on, but you might just be holding the same pace, which is what pacing often feels like when you're running. So I think it's a really cool workout. It's one where like we like to put a lot of shuttle run Athlete IQ stuff in there because and again, probably could be a topic of conversation in this episode. Like we have those conversations about like, should I be walking the shuttle runs? And it's like at a certain level, yes. But like if we are trying to get to a certain point, I mean, you experienced it last year in the online semifinal, people sure as hell were not walking those shuttle runs. Like that intensity was very different at that level. So really cool workout there. Sharpentheaxeco.com. Use the code word page to save on. I actually put talked about rain or shine. I put the final handful of items on sale. There aren't very many left. There aren't very many sizes left, but if you are looking to get some gear, sharpentheaxeco.com. And last but not least, this episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gorilla Mind. You can head to gorillamind.com/misfit or just use the code word misfit at checkout to save and you support the episode. Got a little show and tell here if you're on YouTube. So I've been trying to get away from every once in a while, I'll like watch one of those scary videos about like microplastics and I'm trying to get away from those. So I got these for my shakes on Amazon. If you guys want the link, just let me know in Telegram. And what I put in this to essentially recreate proper recover is one scoop of the Gorilla Mode Intra. So that's carbs, creatine, and electrolytes. And then almost 2 scoops, not quite, 40 grams of protein of the vanilla ice cream whey. So I put all that in this bad boy. And then flavor wise, I got to go with 2 shakers. That's why I have this. I dump about half of it in. But that also gets me 32 ounces of water. And I just think hydration is so important and suck so bad at it, which is why I project and get a little preachy about hydration sometimes.
Fair.
Yep. So intra and whey together, it's still 2 products, but it's a lot better than 4 or 5. And then my other part of show and tell is I have these bad boys for my pills. So they come in like 8 packs.
No microplastics there.
No microplastics here. And I got a lot of pills in here. I take 2 of those bad boys a day. So yeah, gorillamind.com/misfit. You save on what I think are the best supplements in the game, and you support the show. We get a little bit of kickback there. So,
I have
what you got, Paige?
The Cherry Blackout Gorilla Mode Intra. And
Okay.
just to give a flavor profile, if you've ever had a Tootsie Pop, a red Tootsie Pop, and you get to the end where you're mixing, like, you get like the sugar coating and some of the Tootsie Roll, it's that. Like, it's that to a T.
Oh.
And it tastes really good.
Okay.
So highly recommend if you're just looking at straight carbs.
Gone through the strawberry kiwi yet to be able to get to that
good.
point.
I think you'll like it.
That's one thing. Like, I forever was chocolate protein only, but I wasn't really mixing anything with it. I get sick of it though. Chocolate protein is one of those things where, like, your 99th day in a row, you're like, I can't drink this. So switching over to, it never even crossed my mind, honestly, to like the fruity post-workout, like, I down that every single time. Like, it's post-workout, my body wants the water, the electrolytes, the carbs, all that stuff.
Especially when
I just find it way easier. Yeah, I find it way easier to drink every single day. So I just use the chocolate for my smoothie. All right, let's talk about leveling up. The inspiration for this episode came from, did a lecture at the Roots camp where I basically created a pyramid that was like open athlete level 1 is at the base, level 2, quarterfinals level 1, quarterfinals level 2, and then semifinals and beyond at the top. And I'd given 2 lectures in the past that certainly didn't conflict with one another, but sort of represented different ways of thinking about this. One of them was a lecture called The Natural Order of Things, where it's just like, you have to get better at these things first and then these things. And there isn't going to be a way for you to skip any of them. There are going to be strengths and weaknesses based on your genetics, your age, athlete profile, all these different things, but you can't skip steps. It's not possible. I've never seen it. I've seen people that have progressed faster to certain places, but then their weaknesses are so glaring and obvious. So that one's almost like there is only one path to get here. And then the other lecture is one called Whatever It Takes. And that lecture came from more and more athletes that are remote clients coming to visit me in person and realizing that whatever it takes is different for different people. Some people don't mind doing their zone 2 work. Some people love weightlifting. Some people hate weightlifting. Some people actually put their training sessions together really well, but can't stand warming up, cooling down, doing mobility work. Some people can't stand weighing and measuring their food. And there's all these, or going to bed and waking up at the same time every single day. So whatever it takes changes from athlete to athlete. So my goal was to blend these concepts together, because it's like, okay, there's only one path to get there, but then also everyone's path is different. And essentially what I tried to do is show different tiers of movements and modalities that you need to be able to get good at, but then the way that you get good at them is potentially different for each person. And probably the easiest way to start the conversation is the bottom is double unders, thrusters, rowing, and burpees. And that's just straight up general physical preparedness. That's, if you are not good at those things, if you don't have the ability to express your fitness when those things come up, the rest of it's going to be a problem for all kinds of different reasons. And we don't need to go through each step of this. I just kind of wanted to explain to you guys, and I can share the graphic in Telegram, but it's kind of the basis for the idea here. And then before we get into how to level up in each place, some of the inspiration for this is also, I had 3 young, like late teens, potentially early 20s. I don't remember exactly. I think it was late teens athletes walk into my gym that ended up being CrossFit Games athletes. So I got to see them in like beginner mode. I got to teach them movements, and I got to watch them go from each level all the way on up to, how are we doing in the open, to are we going to qualify for regionals this year, to when are we going to qualify for the CrossFit Games. And I just tried to think about, like, first of all, I don't want to toot my own horn, but like, it's kind of crazy that we had 3.
Well, and very different mindsets in all 3 of them.
Yeah, for sure. But what I don't want to do is discount the fact Cody was captain of the football team, point guard on the basketball team,
straight
pitcher,
athlete.
shortstop on the baseball team. Austin had this weird combination of, like, he had the waist of like a Victorian woman who wore a corset for her whole life and is also powerful. And then Caroline's just repping out strict pull-ups, like, outside of her beginner's class. So listen, there is a genetic element. They were athletes before, but they really did, like, each of them had these massive hurdles to get over. So I tried to think about, like, how did we incubate that sort of thing? And I had 4 things come to mind. Obsessed with movement efficiency. Like, to the point where, like, in our gym in the early days, and part of this is the maturity level also of the people in charge at that point. Like, I started this when I was very young. Like, we would ridicule people into moving really well. Like, basically, like Joe Carney would be in the gym and just be like, ew, what is that? Go fix that right now. So there was a little bit too much of, like, this is the only way to move. But I will tell you that obsession with teaching people to move efficiently, like, we got to watch that carry over for years and years and years. It was very obvious. And sometimes they'd be right next to someone with a higher level of GPP than them. And it was like they're in their own way because we were being real annoying about making them do the couch stretch and making them kip their dip. And, like, you got to have your heels down in power position, and you can't be flying open on the rower. Like, just all of this different stuff was like the, like, bedrock of what we taught them. We were also very much, and this is part of what changed about my mindset with whatever it takes. We used to say, take your medicine, as like echo bike sprints, basically, assault bike sprints. That was taking your medicine. But that's not everyone. That's not taking your medicine for everyone, right? For some people, it's the long time domain. Some people, it's in the middle, etc. But intensity was everything, right?
Yep.
Like, we did a good job of shifting them into, like, how do we execute this workout when the time came. But the barrier to entry was moving well and going very hard. And you can think about how, if you could figure out how to do those 2 things, how you would excel in the sport, for sure. Yep. Weakness work. When you are in that kind of environment and you want to recreate this with your virtual training partners, when you're in that kind of environment, there's always going to be someone who is incredible at double unders while you're struggling with them, can do wall balls all day while you can't do them. Their row pace is exponentially higher than yours, that sort of deal. And it makes the glaring weaknesses just so obvious and frustrating that it's like, what do we do here? How do we get better at this specific thing? Like, are we grabbing the rope and doing 100 double unders after a Metcon when everyone else is done? Are we doing a ton of barbell therapy? Are we doing a ton of mobility work to be able to get you into positions that other people can get into that you can't get into? Are we going to, like, bias the shit out of running? Are we going to figure out how to turn someone who looks like they're trying to stomp a hole in the pavement into someone who can be, top at the, semifinals or CrossFit Games in a running event, that sort of thing? But what made this so possible and so special was what the early days of CrossFit gave people in terms of hope. And I call it the power of possibility. We used to refer to it as the 225 snatch rule. No one in CrossFit could snatch 2 blues, and then someone did, and then everyone did.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just so fascinating to watch people just smoke like triples at 220, and then it's like, he's got 2 blues on. And like, you do like the snatch deadlift and drop it. You're like, I can't do it. It's not possible. The knowing that other people can do something and seeing them and seeing their work and seeing what it takes makes it so much more possible to do that thing that you're trying to do. So when we're talking through this today, it is the natural order of things. We don't get to skip steps, but the step that you're currently at and the one that you're trying to get to, it's incredibly possible to do so. Like, it is very possible for you to get from point A to point B, and then we have to start over and go point B to point C, etc. But knowing that it's possible for you to do so, and knowing that 3 beginners can walk into the same little gym in Portland, Maine, and end up at the CrossFit Games. And it's not like this isn't early days stuff. Like, we got 2022 back here. They both went to the CrossFit Games again in 2023. And Cody could have done whatever the hell he wanted, but he was on the podium, just barely lost to Mayhem one of the years on a team. So I don't want to make it seem like it was the grassroots of fitness time and it was just easier to get there. That's definitely not the case. Like, Caroline came out of retirement and beat a CrossFit Games athlete at a competition randomly.
Yeah.
So
I think I'll add to that just one little thing, and it's the belief system that you have in you, right? Like, movement efficiency, intensity, weakness work, power, possibility. We talk about getting from point A to point B, but like, you can get from point A to point E, and you have to believe in it, but you have to believe in the stepping stones to that.
Yeah, for sure.
So hopefully, this can also be a little bit of an inspiration for someone who maybe doesn't have as much belief in themselves, but you can get there. You can build it.
And I had to step in and show these people data and facts about how good they actually were at the times where there were, it was dark because of a single workout or a single thing that happened in competition, that sort of deal. So your support system is also incredibly important related to this. So we are going to go through. So basically what we have is we have every workout from the 2024 season in the open, quarterfinals, and semifinals. And I'm going to try my best. I don't want to read every line of all of this to you guys. So like, some of you will have to open the game's website or think back a little bit, but it actually would be a really good exercise for you to be following along with your scores for these things. Because again, we can talk about how it all relates to one another and how someone could level up. So when we're thinking open to quarterfinals, the number one thing, so if I'm going back to that pyramid there, and it's like that level 2 open athlete needs to be good at gymnastics bar pulling. So toe to bar, pull-ups, bar muscle ups, wall walks, deadlifts, and what I would refer to as CrossFit Olympic lifting, power snatch, power clean, dumbbell snatch, etc. What so many people focus on related to that is they just hear bar muscle up. It's the only word that they hear. And it's like, I need you to be good at double unders, thrusters, rowing, burpees, wall walks, deadlifts, power cleans, power snatch, dumbbell snatch. And they're like, got it, chest to bar, bar muscle up. That's the only thing I'm going to work on. And I'm hoping that, like, what I see in the data here is GPP for sure. The story actually continues to tell itself better and better as we go. And there's a few anecdotes that I have in there, but you need to be really fit first. And you need to move well in simple movement patterns, because what I see is squatting, pressing, jumping, hollow arch, overhead mobility, stability, those things. Those are the things that are, midline stability when it comes to the deadlifts, using your legs, and when it comes to the CrossFit Olympic lifting, etc. So that is the story that we're trying to tell here. And building a super robust engine is incredibly important. And that will help your strength get you to a point where your strength to body weight ratio is good enough to really start to move forward with your gymnastics. So the open, here's what we have. 24.2, 24.3. First one is the dumbbell snatch lateral burpee over the dumbbell. The second one is the 20-minute AMRAP rowing deadlifts and double unders. And the third one is the 5 rounds of thrusters and chest to bar, and then 5 rounds of thrusters and bar muscle ups. My avatars that I used here are on the male side. And Paige is going to talk through a little bit about her experience. A lot of times the women's weights end up being too low, and then they're not really, don't compare very well, but then they keep a machine the same distance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of confusing. So the data is not perfect here in relation to male and female, but I think we're still going to be able to tell the story really well. So 24.1, a quarterfinals level athlete is roughly doing this workout in about 9 minutes. A semifinals athlete, and this is a fringe semifinals athlete, is doing it in about 7 minutes. And a CrossFit Games athlete is doing it in about roughly 6 minutes. And what I like about this is the banding is closer together at the bottom, which means that GPP is very high in those athletes. So the semifinals and the CrossFit Games athlete are within a minute of each other, but then we're 2 or 3 minutes away for the quarterfinals.
Mm-hmm.
And this is very manageable weights and reps and burpees, right? And I scrolled through and there were almost no outliers at the bottom of that quarterfinals level. And I just think this starts to tell, again, the correct story related to this. We think about the skills, we think about the heavy lifting, but then they drop something like this, and a CrossFit Games athlete and I don't want to say a bottom tier because that's kind of really, but 3 minutes is a long time in a workout like this.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think the separation too comes from having that repeatable high output engine, right? Transition efficiency. How composed are you on your burpees? There are clear signs of, or indicators, I'll say, of what separates these times from quarterfinals to games level.
Exactly. So we go on to 24.2, and again, that's the 20-minute AMRAP of the row deadlift double under. The range here is very high. So we got quarterfinals level athletes that are at 7 rounds on this workout, and then CrossFit Games athletes all the way up at 11. And, it's 7 to 9 rounds is what I had for quarterfinals, 9 to 10 for semifinals, and then 10 to 11 for CrossFit Games athletes. Again, these are the male scores. It doesn't seem like the craziest disparity there, but that's because we're talking about rounds. So we're talking about almost 3 minutes a round.
Yeah.
For that lower level, and we are talking about well under 2 minutes around.
Wild.
For the the really high level male CrossFit Games athletes. So again, what could we get bogged down in here? Potentially the double under skill, which I know is a bit of an outlier for some people. And then some people will look at the weight on the deadlift and be like, maybe it's that. If you executed this workout properly, those movements have basically nothing to do with the workout.
Yeah.
All they did was influence how hard you could row if you did it properly. So once again, we are talking through, and there's a lot of athletes are going to want to know, how do I make it from the open to quarterfinals? And thus far, having the skill of doing double unders, the ability to move efficiently with the deadlift, but at the end of the day, 20 minutes of what is my rowing pace? What can my rowing pace be to allow me to continue to move through this workout?
Yeah, there's that GPP propaganda.
It's
it's right there in your face. Yeah. And again, at a games level, you're looking at finding that sustainable threshold where quarterfinals level, you get to a point where you're kind of entering survival mode because you've started with the wrong pacing or things like that. And that comes with experience too. But again, that base that you have as an athlete with the rowing is really what it comes down to here.
Yep, for sure. 24.3, 5 rounds, 10 thrusters, 10 chest to bar, rest 1 minute, 5 rounds, 7 thrusters, 7 bar muscle ups. The weight jumps from 95.65 to 135.95. 15-minute time cap comes into play here because a quarterfinals level male got 7 to 10, so just finishing under the cap, 7 to 10 rounds of this workout. So it was very much it was almost a little too perfect with the programming. That fringe quarterfinals level athlete needed to be able to do multiple rounds of the thruster bar muscle up.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think, again, to be locked in on that bar muscle up number. But when I watched people at that level, it was more about how did they feel after the first 5 rounds?
Mm-hmm.
What was how much time did they have left, which is obviously massively important, but then also like what sort of shape were they in going into that? And it was so obvious when they picked up that barbell that, the first round of 7 thrusters and 7 bar muscle ups, where they were at. So, there were definitely people who liked heavy thrusters and heavy bar muscle ups, or not heavy bar muscle ups, in a decent set, 35 of them in their workout is nothing to scoff at, but they were cooked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They didn't have it left. They were done for.
Yeah. I think you find yourself, especially being a quarterfinals athlete, like you break on movements in there because you have to, like you're getting to a point in the 50 reps of chest to bar where it's just like, I can't hang on. And the separator, I think, for like that games level kind of score is games athletes are breaking because it's optimal and because they know it's going to, be a better strategy for them. Maybe they don't need to, but again, it's optimal.
Yeah, for sure. This one was honestly even more eye-opening than I expected. So like, especially on the men's side, it was obvious that the people who made it to quarterfinals and participated in quarterfinals could do multiple rounds of bar muscle ups. Like that was very much a barrier to entry. But then we go down to semifinals level athletes. And I remind you, this is a 15-minute time cap. They were in the 10 to 12-minute range on this workout. That is a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
That's 5 minutes faster than a very high level, low level quarterfinals athlete, whatever that means. So that to me is like, oh my goodness, like that has nothing to do with can I get myself over the bar? It's can I clear waist, from my forearms, from my legs? Can I breathe? Can I handle this type of stimulus to be able to get there? And when we look down, especially at the CrossFit Games athletes on the men's side, a lot of them were in like 8 to 9 minute range with this workout. And again, I mean, we're pushing almost half the time that it takes for someone to do that. And if you watch someone go through it, again, I don't want to like beat a dead horse here, but it doesn't look like a skill level or like, can I handle these thrusters? It's, do I have good athlete IQ and a level of GPP that somebody else doesn't have?
Yeah, I don't have much more to add to that.
So when we go back to macro view from micro, like, what do you think of if you were a remote coach and you were working with someone? What do you think of when you're trying to sell this information, or just what it takes to get somebody to that quarterfinals level from the open level?
I mean, there definitely has to be like a level of, I'd say in these quite a bit, like an aerobic capacity, especially when you're looking at the rowing, the burpees, things like that. But the level of composure and body language, I think, can really make a big difference, especially in the open.
Yep.
That athletes that I think show potential really do show good body language even this early in the season. And some of that is confidence, but also some of that is, again, that athlete IQ of like, I know how to attack this workout. I know how to cycle this dumbbell with speed. I know how to transition from getting off the rower and how quickly can I get back to the rower out, through the other two movements. That's a lot of, that's kind of where my mind goes.
Yeah. And it's like, there's like a maturity element to that too, because it can be hard for all levels when the adrenaline's high to stick to a plan, but you do it anyways. And, the coach isn't always right with this stuff, but it is a lot easier from our side of the fence to work through a strategy on something and actually believing that that's what you're supposed to do and adhering to it is like a bridge to athlete IQ. Like if you're not even willing Because like one of the things that happens when we don't see the good body language is you don't stick to the plan, and then you're in the hurt locker 4 minutes into a 20-minute AMRAP, and it's like, I don't want to say I told you so, but like this is the kind of thing that you got to go through to realize that like I got your back. I promise you this is the way that this workout is supposed to look. So you got to give in to like you can't win a workout by either having just an insane strategy or going too hard to open the workout. So in my mind, it's like, at what point are you able to convince your athlete, whether you're just someone we're talking to in the Telegram group or you are remote coaching them, like, I know it's going to feel weird. You're going to row at a 205. That's going to be like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
And then you're going to pass the people that don't know what the heck they're doing, and you get to go to quarterfinals. Like, congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, I'll even speak from confidence of, or from the perspective of like my 2024 season to my 2025 season, like open season. I still think back to the burpee dumbbell clean and jerk. What was it, 25.1, and the shit body language that I had, and then the shit score that I got because of it. And I'm not saying that's the only thing that affected it, but I like, that's what comes to my mind right now. And I'm like, ooh, I still hate that I let that happen. But then I think back to 2024 and like the mindset and the body language was a complete 180 from that. So, 2025, I went through injury, things like that. There were other reasons that played into body language and mindset. Right. But again, there was such a contrast there. That I can speak to for sure.
Yeah, and I'm like, I've been obsessed with body language from the beginning because I've always been just wanted to be observant of what separated good from great. And one of the things you notice about a certain type of athlete is just the way that they carry themselves. And once you notice it, you can't unnotice it. And there are multiple really high level athletes that come to mind that I won't name that went from displaying some of the best body language I've ever seen for different reasons to maybe getting kind of CrossFit famous and et cetera, and having expectations put on them, and they don't carry themselves that way anymore. And it's really obvious. And then I've seen every damn online competition workout that you've done, Paige. So when I saw the video of 25.1, I was like, that's not Paige.
Yuck.
That's not her.
Yeah.
And you can't act out a version of yourself that isn't you. Like, it's never gonna, it's like, oh, today's not my day. Like, I'll just see what happens, like that kind of thing. You're just not going to be able to do that. And it's important to try and to will yourself there. But like, whenever I see that, whenever I get a video from someone and they're going through something, I don't need the message that either comes with it or doesn't come with it. It's very clear to me the way that someone's carrying themselves is huge. So that's a really important point there, and something that doesn't always get talked about. All right, so we are on to 2024 quarterfinals. We have 4 workouts here. We've got the infamous 4 rounds for max reps with the dumbbell box step ups, where half the CrossFit Games got to stay home from just going to semifinals. We have oh my goodness, there's some classics in here. We have the 3 rounds for time of 50 wall balls, 50 burpee box jump overs. We have the sort of ascending difficulty of handstand push-ups and pulling gymnastics. And then we finish with the clean and jerk, kind of ladder into the max reps. And essentially, again, what we're looking at here is what were the scores on these things? And it's still going to be the same 3 levels. And then Paige can kind of talk through her experience a little bit. So quarterfinals 24.1, 4 rounds for max reps of 1 minute of snatches, 1 minute of rowing for calories, 1 minute of dumbbell box step ups, and then 1 minute of rest. Quarterfinals males, we're getting roughly 140 to 160 reps. I guarantee you there were some real fit people in there that had a real bad strategy. We definitely saw people even dial back the snatches, just never enough, right?
Yeah.
That was definitely the one where you could sabotage yourself pretty quickly, especially like if it was a strength of yours. Semifinals level athletes, 210 to 230 reps. That is a staggering difference when you're talking about something that's as simple as that workout. And then again, banded really close together because they're just that much fitter. Okay. You don't need to be very strong in this workout. You don't need to be very skilled in this workout. So the games athletes were 230 to 250 reps on the men's side. So we go from 140 to 250. And again, fitness.
Yeah. I mean, you're
You
looking
got to be
at,
fitter.
yeah, again, there's that high repeatability, right? Having the capacity to recover in a minute and then have a sustainable pace for the 4 rounds of work. There's not really much fall off.
And
when
it was
comes
that was a step up workout.
Yeah.
Like when they did,
And like grip too, right? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, you're just holding on to things the entire time.
I mean, what is like the open one, the number one thing that I have listed on open athlete level 2 is grip.
Right.
The amount of grip strength that you need to excel in the sport. And again, comes a lot from general physical preparedness. It's not just, your dead hangs and your, the more you accumulate reps because you're getting fitter in a workout, that's what's going to make the biggest difference related to that. But like the really high level games athletes, watching them do this workout, the step ups were what just blew my mind. Like you could tell they were not in a good place and they held on to the dumbbells and kept stepping up anyways at a very high rate. 24.2, 3 rounds, 50 wall balls, 50 burpee box jump overs, a real slap in the face from, I think this was the return of Castro. Was 23 Boz?
Yes.
Or 22?
23, because I remember.
It was 22 because wasn't that the year that they had the whatever triple under crossover backflips at the games?
Yeah. Sorry. Right.
And I only remember, honestly, because I know that it's the year of the signs that I have behind me. Yes. That's the only reason I remember. Yeah. So one of the, and honestly, I don't even know if he was back in 23 for the quarterfinals yet or not, but this was very much a Castro, like, oh, you guys think you need to be good at X, Y, and Z. You actually need to learn how to pace workouts. Quarterfinals level athletes were getting 220 to 260 reps. It's a 300 rep workout. And then we'll go the fastest just to create the disparity here, 15 minutes for those 300 reps. Not skilled, not strong. I mean, of course, being stronger helps a lot in a workout like this, but your ability to pace, to have that body language, to remain calm, to stick to your plan, to realize that this workout is going to be like 6 different versions of shitty is going to get kind of hard from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like understanding those portions of it is what is going to allow you to train that way in an off season and then get yourself to a point where you can do that. And like one athlete, Brandon True, comes to mind on this. Like this would have been the kind of workout that would have sent him into 14 millionth place and like not a good spot. And we convinced him on the podcast to do sets of 10 on the wall balls. And he made it to his first, I believe it was his first semifinal that he had gotten to. So athlete IQ is definitely important there. So semifinals athletes, about 16.5 to 18.5 minutes on the men's side, and then 15 to 16 minutes for the CrossFit Games athletes, roughly on the men's side. Just such an absolute doozy of a workout, and honestly, a like paradigm shifting workout. The kind of workout where what I've programmed since then, there's been a lot of changes in what I've programmed since then, because it's like, okay, when they do this to us with things like the burpee box jump over, with things like the shuttle run, how do we pace those? And an athlete needs the experience, like just has to have that experience. And, one of the things that I noticed was some of the athletes that I knew that did some like a couple more online qualifiers than others over the years typically had a better time in a workout like that because they had just been, just by expanding how often they're competing, have the experience of like someone has thrown, the turd in the punch bowl of like at least one huge set of burpee box jump overs, probably not 50, but they know what it feels like. They know how painful it is to maintain a, kind of a moderate pace throughout that sort of thing. So experience comes into play here for sure. But we're still, we're about to arrive at a place where we're going to have to defend our thesis these next 2 workouts for sure. But to this point, arriving here, what you were able to do to be able to really push, got to be super fit.
Yeah.
You got to put the time in.
If you look at, the one that comes to mind is Fee. Like Fee's a ninja on burpee box jump overs. But like,
she was super impressive on those step ups too. And she's like, not large.
Yeah. But like, I think what you would notice is if you separated all 3 rounds, her burpee box jump over cadence was probably the same from round 1 to round 2. And then maybe even a little bit faster in round 3 because she knew that the end was near. But, you get into a quarterfinals athlete, they feel so good in round 1. And they're real sad in round 3. And that's kind of where that big drop off happens. And a lot of that, again, I think comes from 1 is pacing, 2 is body language. Like, you just got to know that you're in it for 150 burpee box jump overs, and you got to know.
I'm glad you brought that up because, man, I saw
like
some epic meltdowns in this workout. Like just I've worked with people who had very high aspirations and had the genetic potential to get to a place, but they never really bought into the idea of the mindset, to the idea of the body language. Like, you can tell they're like, okay, you got to get your like little note in there about this. But those were the people that I watched crumble in this workout because round 1 was really hard. And it took 5 to 8 minutes and you had 2 more of them coming. And it's like, if this is this bad already, where is this going to go? And that acceptance of where you're taking yourself, the ride you're going on mentally, is so important. And I think the in-person stuff, it's almost easier. You're dragged along a lot at semifinals in the CrossFit Games, but you're not going to be dragged along at all in the open in quarterfinals.
Yeah, right.
Like, maybe a little bit in certain workouts at Friday Night Lights or whatever. But this one is you're on an island. You're alone. You're rarely in the same spot as somebody else. You can't even tell what's going on. You feel like you're doing the same movement the whole time anyways. And to earn your right to be pulled along by the best in the world, you have to learn to do it by yourself. You have to learn to suffer in silence, to do your own thing. And hopefully we make the kind of content in the open and in quarterfinals that lets you guys know that you're kind of in for it. But I love that this quarterfinals builds in a way to, like, you almost have to earn the right to go and do your handstand push-ups, etc.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right. 24.3. Time to try and defend what we've been saying the entire episode. So 24.3, we have 3 rounds of 10 handstand push-up, 20 toes to bar, 2 rounds of 10 strict handstand push-ups, 5 rope climbs, and 1 round of 10 chest to wall handstand push-ups, and a measly set of 20 muscle ups at the end after your arms are absolutely, positively annihilated. The reason I say it that way is if you have aerobic functioning and you move well and you have mobility and you understand hollow arch and your grip, you earn the right to be able to move through those muscle ups. This workout on paper, I'll use myself as the opposite of this to defend what I'm trying to say. On paper, this should be a good workout for me, right? Like these movements, don't love toes to bar, but I love handstand push-ups. I love muscle ups. I am coming around on rope climbs as I stop using my biceps to make my way up the rope. But I've never been fit enough to get to show you what I'm up to on the rings at the end. I've never reached that level of GPP. So it's like the grass is not always greener on the other side. Being someone who wishes they could do max rep clean and jerk at 245 and doing their 20 muscle ups, I never put in the work to earn the right to be able to do that. And again, I want the propaganda to be so obvious here that you earn the right to be able to do that by becoming absurdly fit, by, being able to just do massive sets of step ups and being able to pace your burpee box jump overs and being able to, again, clear waist and work your way through this stuff to, have a great 2K row and a 5K row and these things that have the lower barriers to entry. That will create a version of you that can then go on and do this stuff. And one thing that I really like is when an athlete isn't like really a ninja in these movements, but is really fit and ends up beating somebody who likes the movements and isn't as fit.
Mm-hmm.
That usually drives the point home. So in this workout, we had a 15-minute time cap. Quarterfinals athletes were getting on the men's side between 90 and 130 reps. 90 is just the end of the 3 rounds. So they either took a really long time to do those 3 rounds or they went to kick upside down after 30 handstand push-ups and 60 toes to bar, and their body was like, nah, I'm good. The 130 is getting all the way through. And I thought this was kind of interesting. So basically not getting any of the strict handstand push-ups all the way to getting the 2 rounds of the strict handstand push-ups and rope climbs to getting 1 round of just the chest to wall. So maybe they couldn't, a lot of them probably ran out of time knowing what the other scores were, but it's cool to see that the people who had earned the right to get there is a larger disparity, which probably to me takes me back to the movement efficiency piece.
Yeah. I mean, obviously what you notice here is strict capacity, upper body stamina, and then, like you said, like that technical component to it, especially when you're getting to, honestly, I think right even at the toes to bar, like if you're not moving efficiently, how are your rope climbs going to feel? If you're not efficient on the rope, how are your muscle ups going to feel? Like every movement is just a layer, a building block to that next one. And, these movements aren't something that you can build in 3 months before the open, right? Or before quarterfinals. Like there is, again, you're still building that foundation, and the athletes that have been putting in their 10,000 hours on their GPP are going to be able to get further into this workout or finish it faster. The ones that have the technical component to it all.
Yeah. And one nuance here that hopefully can be a silver lining for people is I've had better luck getting someone from quarterfinals to semifinals level athlete and then beyond who at first couldn't really do these movements much at all, because we were able to build this really great foundation of their movement patterns. So we're like really locked in on the way that they're kipping their handstand push-ups and the way that we're doing toes to bar. We're really locked in on the way that they climb rope because they're lacking the upper body strength essentially to do it wrong. And the same goes for the muscle ups. The people who are really hard to coach related to this stuff are the ones who can muscle their way through muscle ups and strict handstand push-ups, because they log so many bad reps by the time that they get to you that when they are under fatigue, it's so hard to turn that around. So if you're working on moving incredibly well right now, you're going to have a much better chance of having a higher ceiling than that person who kind of annoys you in your gym that can just do the thing. But then, I mean, they're just never at that point in the workout to be able to even try. And when they are, they fall apart because they're fried and their movement patterns won't allow them to continue to move.
Yeah. I mean, if I looked at this workout in 2023 and not 2024, I'd be like, I'm not finishing it. The only movement I like in there are the muscle ups, and they're all the way at the end. So like I really would have to earn my right. Even in 24, like strict handstand push-ups, regular or chest to wall, they've had to become an obsession for me. And just, kind of circling back to that conversation of like, we went over the tiniest details for me to try to clean them up. And now I get into them and I'm like, I don't hate them. And my body language is even much better about them. So,
of course,
like it's just, you got to have that that foundation. You got to take the time to obsess over the
Mhm.
movements to earn your right to get to those muscle ups.
I think back to, and this is weird because it's mano-a-mano, like that part of it is challenging. You're very much in competition with yourself, right? Like I'm standing in the batter's box, I'm looking at another person trying to throw the ball past me. And in this instance, you're staring at like a wall or wooden circle,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Or a metal pipe. But the idea of me ever, and I did this plenty of times, stepping into a batter's box and being like, this guy's throwing 85 miles an hour. Like, I don't stand a chance. It is crazy how bad you are in those instances when you don't believe that it's possible for you to do so. And there would be a moment where, like, I can think of one where we were facing this like really high level pitcher and he was really wild in warm-ups. So in the dugout, they were like, you got to take at least 2 or 3 pitches because he's probably going to walk you. I'm down 0-2 immediately, and then I strike out. Like 3 pitches, boom, 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 I strike out. The next time I go up, I was so angry that I hit the ball potentially the furthest I ever had because I was just there doing my thing.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't like, oh, this guy's, you know, a lefty and I'm a lefty and it's like this huge problem. And that's a thing that I carry with me. Like if you're approaching the wall and it takes really great positioning and it takes like, I'm going to move fast or I'm going to come down, it takes all this stuff and you're like, I don't think I can do this. You don't stand a chance.
Right.
Like,
yeah. That
it's
narrative
not going to
is set.
happen. Yes, for sure. So we had the 90 to 130 reps in the 15-minute time cap. Semifinals athletes, 8.5 to 10.5 minutes. CrossFit Games athletes, 7 to 8 minutes. Again, this is on the men's side. Women's scores were upwards of a couple minutes different on this workout specifically, which makes sense with kind of the upper body dominance. A lot of times, lower body dominance, women are either closer or faster, but with the upper body, we typically see that. So like Paige, you have here that you were 10-20. So that would put you squarely in the kind of semifinals athlete range there.
Mm-hmm.
But man, 7 minutes or 90 reps in 15 minutes is obviously a very large change. And we'll go to the macro again here in a minute to talk through this stuff, because right now we're basically just saying random numbers. But that is obviously a very massive difference there. Last but not least, we have our 24.4. So this is kind of the lift, but not a lift. 10 clean and jerks, 135/85 rest a minute, 10 clean and jerks, 185/125 rest a minute, 10 clean and jerks, 225/155 rest 1 minute, max rep clean and jerks in the remaining time at 245/165. What was the time cap on? Is it 11 minutes?
I think it
I
was.
don't remember
Good question.
because I didn't say what that was.
I think it was
I should
10.
have. Okay. Well, quarterfinals athletes were getting between 20 and 32 reps. So these are people that are just kind of sneaking in on the back end. So we have just the first 2 bars up to a couple of reps at the final bar. And we have 44 to 56 reps, the semifinals athletes. So the 44 to 56 reps is going to be 14 to 26 reps at the 245, 165, and then the games athletes 57 to 66.
So many
This is
reps.
one where the women's scores were crazy. So Paige was 60th with 62 reps. She did 32 clean jerks at 165.
Stupid.
That must have been fun, Paige.
Well, luckily I was with McKenna for
wild.
all of these. Yeah. And McKenna
Okay.
got more than I did. So
Yeah. Oh, I remember that. I remember that well. You guys were hurting.
she is bruised like for days.
Yep. And again, plenty of strong people. Like one cool thing about the Misfit Gym Portland related to this stuff is you get a lot of people that are playing along that don't really care.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like, oh, I qualified and you want me to come in and do this thing and I guess I'll do it. And like sometimes they signed up, sometimes they didn't, sometimes I had to give them $20, that sort of thing. But you saw a kind of like slightly strong person bury someone who was strong and not fit in a workout like this, which is, again, just fun to see because there is like, as you make your way through this workout, it's gassy. It gets real gassy. It gets tough to continue to do that. The movement itself is so dynamic, and they kept it in that power clean to push jerk kind of range for most people, where, again, it became so gassy, and why in all of the podcasts that we've done recently, I've refused to call it just a lift. So again, big disparity here with these reps. We're talking people competing, getting anywhere from 20 to 66 reps, which if we're talking about an ascending ladder, being huge. And that brings us to the macro conversation of what does it take for someone to go from quarterfinals level to semifinals level. And there is very clearly a level of dedication into the little things and to the stuff that happens outside of the gym that has to be addressed. It's not going to be possible anymore for your like genetic freak friend in the gym to make it there. They're going to end up being a mid-level quarterfinals athlete until they get to a point where they are following the program that they should be following. They are sleeping the amount that they are. They're fueling themselves properly. They're paying attention to weaknesses, whether that's a specific movement, time domain, machine, or mobility, that sort of thing. So the leveling up when we are going from quarterfinals to semifinals, as you work your way through, is very much about changing a lot of behaviors that aren't directly related to fitness. And of course, there's so many rungs on these ladders. Like, we don't have the time to do a 6-hour episode where we say like, okay, 15,000th place to like 3,000. There's a huge difference.
Yeah.
But as you can start to, like, what I love to do for people that are struggling with this is go to their games profile, look at how they've progressed over the years, how their open finishes have improved, how their quarterfinals finishes have improved. And then I go find an avatar of an athlete that did the same thing and then ended up making it eventually to semifinals and showing them, you are, if this ladder has 10 rungs on it, you're at like rung 5. And if you're willing to follow the same path as this person, and it's really cool when that person also went to the games eventually. But like, if you're willing to, a lot of people, the semifinals is a Super Bowl, and it should be. Like, if you do the math on the percentage of the population, holy shit. Yeah, it's a really big deal. So showing people that and just being like, hey, you continue to put your head down until you feel like you've plateaued a little bit. And then we got to talk about remote coaching. We got to talk about your sleep. We got to talk about personal relationships and stress and all of this different stuff in your life. We got to talk about the fact that you can do 10 rope climbs and you can't get into a couch stretch. Little inside joke there. So again, like, the biggest thing about that leap, we talked about all these details related to these numbers, and it's like your ability to do all of these other things probably lies outside of the gym in many instances.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, when you made that change for you, Paige, like, I know it's been a while, but what changed about what you did, how you trained, how you carried yourself, etc., in that transition?
Yeah, I mean, there was, man, I could even think back to like 2016 when I made regionals, and 2017, and just the small, it's actually kind of neat to think about like the evolution of what it took to become a games athlete. Like, even in 2018, there was still a lot of immaturity on my end of like how to approach training, how to approach the lifestyle of it. But it is quite an overhaul. Like, your sleep routine becomes something that needs to be super consistent. The way that you're eating, don't have to be super strict about it, but you can't be an asshole about it either.
Right.
Well,
a lot of times it's like, is there enough of all of the things?
Yeah, right. And then it was like, if I kind of developed a good sleep routine, like added that on, but then I eventually removed something that was bad as well. So like, frequently going out
Addition
and
by subtraction.
yeah, like frequently wanting
Yeah.
to go out to eat and maybe have a glass or two of wine while I'm out. Like that was almost weekly, was more removed. And if I went out to eat, it was all right, I'll have a water or a Diet Coke. Like it changed and there was still some moderation, but it needed a complete overhaul regardless. Like you can't get by, especially now, you can't get by with any type of shortcut. And that's a commitment, and that's something that you have to actually like figure out if it's practical for you. Because especially like I think of a games athlete that is going to go full time and compete. I think of McKenna, who is, really making a commitment for it and has the means to do that. And then I think of someone like Kyle Moline, who is trying to make semifinals, if I'm correct in saying that. Yeah. And he works a full-time job and he has to balance those things. But he's finding things within his day-to-day that match the lifestyle of what it takes to compete at a semifinal level, which is fun to watch. It's fun to hear like the changes people make or see the support that they have. Him, I think I don't know if they're married. Girlfriend, Caroline?
Married.
They're married. Yeah. Okay. I thought so. But yeah, I mean, it takes support as well. 2024 was my best year, but also I wouldn't just say it from a leaderboard perspective. I'll say it from a how I felt perspective of like, I've removed things that weren't good for me and I added things that were very good for me. I went to bed consistently at 8:30, 9 o'clock so I could get up at 5 a.m. to go train with McKenna. We were together for 3 hours getting in solid training. I removed relationships that were not good for me. I've removed social interactions that had negative impact. So there was both like bringing in and removing that made really, really positive changes for me in 2024.
And a lot of that stuff creates space for the other stuff to just feel more natural. Like when I think to 2024, and I've thought about this before, I mean, that was by far the most communication that you and I had related to feedback about programming. Because when you get down to programming phase 1 hatchet is very different than programming CrossFit Games prep for a very small number of people, because you can almost tailor the program. But even at that point, it's like, what's working, what's not working, how do we adjust the programming moving forward, that sort of thing. And that, again, creates space for a lot, creates space for consistency. Like, that's the part of it where I see some of the biggest issues. The year becomes segmented for people, and it's not always on purpose. Like some people just love to travel, and they miss like some really important, especially in terms of timing, chunks of programming that are like, okay, like this is finally where you're going to put yourself over the top, and then you're not training, that sort of thing. And then a lot of times it's life events, like life happens, injuries happen, things of that nature. And you need to have that like level of buy-in where McKenna and I were talking about this recently of like, what allowed you, Paige, to maintain a really high level of buy-in when the programming was like, didn't look sometimes like like CrossFit Games prep. It's like, I can't pull a barbell off the floor for Games prep. It's like, okay, let's figure this out. But you have a level of trust and a level of buy-in to the GPP gods. And it's like, okay, I've done this enough times now to know that like, I probably don't need to rely on the barbell work as much, and let's just go get real fit, that sort of thing. But like, what allowed you to keep that headspace during those periods of time? She's like, I just did.
Kind of, but you and Gabe helped me keep a good narrative in my head. That was the first thing. So even as I spent a lot of time alone, like I needed reminders quite a bit. Like reassurance was really important.
Sure.
And, for the listener, I was in a 3-year relationship and we ended up, breaking up. And I was kind of like, I could either like let this really, really hit me in the worst way possible and like let everything go, or I can double down on my habits and the good things that I have in my life. And it was actually more motivation to focus on myself. So I'd say that's not a situation that would happen for everybody, and I don't want it to happen for you, but it allowed me to...
Unless it would be a good thing.
Unless it would be a good thing, right? Like I removed things that were not good for me so that I can have better in my life. And yeah, like I really, really focused on the good habits that I needed so that I didn't spiral in the worst way. And it kept me really grounded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, and a lot of that was support, like leaning on you guys, leaning on like McKenna and going into training with her. Like I was really like blessed with having the support that I had because it came at a time where I really, really needed it. Yeah,
for sure. All right, we are on to the big kahuna. We are on to what it takes to become a CrossFit Games athlete after becoming a semifinals level athlete. This data is fun because there are places where the numbers are just jammed right together and everyone's kind of doing the same thing. And it's like, okay, athlete IQ and movement efficiency are huge. Then there are places where the numbers are not similar. And we get to start there.
Yeah.
We have 24.1. I didn't choose 2024 on purpose because it tells a like really linear story, but luckily it does.
It does, yeah.
Because so many other years are like, okay, well, if you lived on Antarctica and hopped around on one foot, this is where you were at, and these workouts were completely different. And some of them are stupid. So luckily we have this beautiful, well thought out season that maybe they could get us back to. We'll see. Semifinals, 24.1, 5 rounds, run 800 meters, 10 clean and jerks at 185/125. What a beaut. What an absolute beaut of a workout. Paige, I want you, while I'm explaining all of this, to just really ruminate about how this workout felt. Semifinals, fringe athlete, someone who had just made it, someone who finished kind of bottom of the pack, 24 to 28 minutes. CrossFit Games qualifiers, 21, 23 minutes. That is a massive difference. Like, I can't even begin.
A minute per round, a minute plus per round.
Yeah, over a minute a round is in something like that at that level is pretty eye-opening. And one of the reasons that this happens is because you don't need to be a good runner to make it, but you need to be an amazing runner to do well there. So it's like we're thinking about that throughout the year with our programming. Some of these athletes just not good runners straight up, and then others were, again, my biggest moment to perform is quarterfinals. Maybe we leave some of that style of training off the table because we just don't want it to eat up time. You know what I mean? To kind of get in the way of that. But just an absolute stimulus bomb, GPP, we've got to pull, we've got to push, we've got, K of running. Like, it's a lot. Paige, how was semifinals 24.1 to experience?
I'm pretty sure I was in zone 5 the entire time.
Good body language.
Yeah. So again, building confidence over the years with running, building like a monstrous aerobic base with running. That's really what it came down to. And it wasn't a matter of just holding on. Like there was no surviving in this. It was like you were competing up until that rep of clean and jerks. Like I remember the 5th round, Amanda Barnhart comes in, 10 touch and go reps, and I literally finished like half a second before her. And I look and I'm like, holy shit. Because
that was one where there was no finish line, right? That one was weird.
Right.
You could just finish and like fall over.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. They're in that big square.
But yeah, I mean, and again, part of that I think is the experience too of like, we know, like games athletes know that to get to the games, you have to run. And coaches know that. So like you're building that aerobic base for quite a few years already. And I think that is a huge experience piece from a games athlete to a semifinals athlete.
Yeah. I always say there's the old Russian saying, to press, you must press. To run, you must run.
Yeah.
Like there are the people who, like, you think of the athletes that in the teen division just dominated the running, that don't win the running events anymore as they've gotten older, and they've had to put a lot of eggs in the other basket. And it just shows that like they're still good runners, but they're not the best runners in the sport. And the funny thing, some of the people that beat them are people who started as not good runners.
Yeah.
You know, you think of like an Adler, or I don't
Mhm.
know that Roman wasn't a good runner growing up, but he sure as hell doesn't look like he was. You know, you think of, you know, some of the other bigger athletes that have worked on that.
Yeah.
24.2, 5 rounds, 100 double unders, 20 toes to bar, 10 front squats, 225/155. An absolute just beaut of a triplet. This is another one. 14 to 18 minutes for the fringe semifinals athletes and 11 to 12 and a half minutes. The cool thing there is we have the outliers. We have our 11, we have our 18. Clearly, this one has a mix of a lot of times, you know, maybe someone who's good at pressing isn't as good of a puller, but those elements are combined. So you kind of have a little bit of evening out there. But then 12 and a half to 14 isn't really that big of a difference. And those are CrossFit Games qualifiers all the way up to people who took 30th in that workout. And at this level, one of the stories that I'm trying to tell is that the fitness levels the gaps aren't as huge as you would think. Like when you watch it in person, it seems that way. And then you do the math and you look at the leaderboard and it looks like someone crushed another person and it's a 15-minute workout and they beat them by like 30 seconds. Like you can think back to how movement efficiency and doing your zone 2 work and having the athlete IQ could put you in a massively different spot on the leaderboard.
Yeah. I mean, the 225/155 for most, I'll say games athletes, like that's not heavy. It's annoying. Like,
right.
You know, it's being able to cycle the barbell efficiently, getting back to your double unders, intentionally, you know, being smart on your toast bar if they're being broken up. I think some of the guys went unbroken the whole time, but you know, for me that became a grip factor when you think 5 rounds of 20 toast to bar.
When you were just like, you were expressing your GPP here alongside your athlete IQ in a big way, because in years past, 100 toes to bar in a workout that only takes 12 minutes would have been very challenging for you.
Yeah, for sure.
But you get fitter. Of course, you work on your toes to bar, but it was never like just obsessive, like 3 times a week sort of a thing.
Yeah.
It was just get fitter and get better at clearing waste, and let's figure out the strategy that gets you to that point. And that's how you take a top 10 finish in a workout where if everyone else had done their homework, maybe you're 12th to 15th, something like that.
Yeah.
Like you're definitely have a strategy element there that is huge.
I think there's a bit of a narrative element on that one for me as well. I really like front squats and I really like double unders. So
love that, right?
Yeah.
2 out of 3?
Yeah. So like the body language.
70% wheelhouse? Hell yeah.
So the body language was a big one. But I think of some McKenna who actually I think when we tested it was struggling on the double unders. So then that body language like changed for her within that workout. And there's a reflection in the scores, like respectively between the two of us, you know?
Yeah. Yep. And she actually, so that was I think that was one of the times that I saw her get into that flow state.
Yeah.
Because we tested it in Maine, right?
Yeah.
That was at Misfit Gym, and her time was not what it was on the competition.
Yeah. Which was also, cool to see. To get that turnaround of like, I had a bad trial run at this, and then to come back and smash it in competition. Right. That's hard to do.
Yeah, that's one where like we'll do an episode. I don't know if we've done one before, but just that idea of the information gathering that you can get. Like I'm watching this and I'm like, this ain't the strategy, but it's good that we know that. Yeah,
this was the second workout, right? She was 14th. She was not even a minute behind me, where when we tested it together, she was maybe
close to DNF.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah,
I think so.
So talking 5+ minutes difference, something like that. All right. So again, if you are an open athlete and we are here saying that 225 front squats aren't a big deal, I understand, but also these are the things that if you give in to the natural order of things and the timeline and you're stepping up each rung of the ladder, you will arrive at the place where like there is a very big, if this was 275, is a very different workout.
Mhm.
So I don't want to discount these things, but I promise you there is a world where that is actually a reality for you. Semifinals 24.3. This one's very different on the men's and women's side, and you'll know why in 1 second. 7 rounds for time, 10 cal echo bike, 1 legless rope climb, 10 box jump overs, 30/24 inches, 1 legless rope climb. 14 legless rope climbs for time for at least half of the people there. And then for the like tippy top, it was fitness plus that.
Mhm.
And on the men's side, 10.5 to 13 minutes for your fringe semifinals level athletes and 9 to 10 minutes on the CrossFit Games men's side. Paige was 11:33 and she took 6th place. So you can kind of see the disparity there between the men's and women's scores. But this is definitely one where you could have your like punch in the face, welcome to this new level.
Mhm.
You know, there are plenty of people who like legless rope climbs that finally get the opportunity to show that off. But more often than not, it's like, oh, wow. Because that stimulus, if you aren't clearing waste, if you don't have an aerobic base, even though it's only, you know, a 10 to 12 minute workout, your arms are going to become a problem.
Yeah, it's
You're going to be on the
insane
bike
pulling capacity.
doing the shake shimmy and just using your legs, and it's going to take you way long. It's going to take you a minute, you know, to do your 10 calorie, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a wild one for sure. There's a lot of different things going
I'd
on.
say like not that Echo Bike is wheelhouse, but that in that format, like that was pretty good wheelhouse workout for me. I really do like legless rope climb. So like to give perspective on that, finished 11:33, 6th place, again, games level, semifinal, McKenna, you know, finishing that workout, not thinking she could, which was
Right.
really, really cool to see and experience. But the difference is in the transition. So like we're getting off the bike, we're going right up the rope, we're getting right over to the box. McKenna's getting off the bike, feeling it out, making sure she feels ready to get up there. Like there is that experience, that pulling capacity that's a differentiator there.
Right, for sure. This one was cool. This one, so we have 24.4. I'll read it in a weird way. 400, 600, 800 meter row. In between that, 96 foot, 120 foot, 72 foot handstand walk. There was only a 2-minute disparity between first and last place on this workout. So you get 8 to 9.5 minutes for your fringe semifinals level athletes, and then your CrossFit Games qualifiers were 7.5 to 8 minutes. And again, sort of back to the 10 front squats at 225, like that is a lot of handstand walking, but that's a pretty, for that level of athletes, it's a pretty low barrier to entry workout. And it really is about your fitness level.
Yeah.
Like
how hard
that's
could
what
you row?
that is. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. How hard could you row, and could you transition and just kick up and go? That was one of the ones where people were handstand walking so fast that I had to change one of my spreadsheets that talked about how fast people can handstand walk. CrossFitters are almost always stuck with walking shorter distances over and over. So when they have the opportunity to go walk all the way across the competition floor, it's like, shit.
Yeah.
Some people can cruise.
I think this was the year that really showed that too. Like now we're seeing it more often than not, that like speed in your handstand walk really does matter.
All right. So we are 90 minutes into this episode. I am going to go a little bit faster now. So we're going into the snatch ladder, 10-8-6-4-2, going all the way from 185/135 to 265/175. The only thing that I want to put out there, so semifinals fringe athletes, his time cap was 11 minutes, about 9 to 9.5 minutes on the fast end to getting capped. And then CrossFit Games athletes were 5 to 7.5 minutes. But one cool thing here, we have it in the previous one, Paige took 26th in the row handstand walk workout, qualified for the CrossFit Games. Jason Hopper took 18th in the snatch ladder. And again, you would think about him being a bigger athlete, being a stronger athlete. And I don't remember him struggling to qualify that year. I don't think he was in one of the spots that was down there. but you would have the narrative that he's this big, powerful athlete, so he would rely on getting as many points as possible in this to make up for, say, how he would do potentially in a running workout or a workout with a lot of toes to bar or whatever. But that's not the case. He took 18th in this workout and was still able to qualify for the games. So just pushing back once again at the narrative of, I got to be able to snatch God knows how much weight, and I got to be able to do 30 unbroken muscle ups or whatever it is, versus I need to be able to go run 4K and clean and jerk a moderate weight barbell 40 times in 20-ish minutes, something to that effect.
50.
That was a good one for you.
Yeah. God, that takes me back to 2016. That was a repeat. 2016, I got, I think, 3 snatches at the third bar of the 5. And then here I finished it in 5.5 minutes. So that's a
crazy.
Really, that's cool. That is cool.
That's crazy. That we have the grand finale here. One of the inspirations for some of the sprinter bowls you lucky misfits get to do in quarterfinals prep. 30 cal echo bike, 15 muscle ups, 72 foot double dumbbell walking lunge, and the farmers carry grip hundreds and 70s. Semifinals level athletes, about 3 minutes and 40 seconds to 5 minutes and 20 seconds. And then the CrossFit Games athletes, roughly 220 to 320. Again, cool to see both the disparity between, I barely made it to semifinals and I'm one of the best in the world. That's 3 full minutes, but then only 20 seconds between 30th place and someone like Saxon Panchek. So you have these outliers, but then everyone in the middle is just all jammed together.
Yeah.
And if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you're probably sick of me saying this specific competition, North America East, on the men's and women's side, was just absolutely incredible to watch. Like 30 plus athletes on both sides would have been good enough to do okay at the CrossFit Games, which I've just never kind of witnessed before, which is really cool. So only bring up the Saxon thing. Saxon came in 21st in this workout and qualified for the games. And that just puts out there that narrative of, got to be able to do my 15 unbroken muscle ups to be able to get to this point, that sort of deal. And the funny thing is, a lot of in a workout like this, it's just long enough that a lot of your fast twitch athletes blow up.
I
remember
testing
famously, oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, famously the Tyler Christoffel has that ability to kind of go there, but those finals workouts were always tough for him. And I think this was one of those ones where he had a tough time and slid out of a spot. And they put these at the end and they look great for you on paper, and you probably did pretty damn well in testing when it was in a bubble and it was in your gym and you got to decide what your training looked like around it. But then your ability from just a straight up fitness level to arrive at a 6th workout of that intensity with that adrenaline, with the crowd there, not sleeping in your own bed, just staring at bowls of rice.
What are the points like on the leaderboard? Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot at play there, and you end up not being able to execute there because it's so much more about your level of fitness, your recovery protocols. Are you able to eat? Are you the kind of person who just stares at the leaderboard the whole weekend and doesn't go out and execute, that sort of thing? So that was one where you can start to see how someone who would wax you in that fresh can just absolutely fall apart, because they design those workouts you have to make these really big decisions in them. And of course, Tia picks up the dumbbells probably first and then wins, but almost everyone else who got there around the same time ends up failing those reps because they didn't pace the first few properly.
Yeah, it's one of those too where it's like, okay, that's 72 feet of walking lunges. How many people fell apart 60 feet in, or in the last 6 feet of it, and had to drop them and step back and have to redo that last inch essentially in that workout and lose so much time? Like it's the sweet spot, and they program it this way for a reason. But I wonder how much plays mentally, right? Like, you're 6 feet away.
That's where I was going.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's such a mind fuck too sometimes, but it's like maybe you just didn't practice
as
with
an athlete,
75-pound dumbbells like we did.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
I can't. That is the most like fat guy on the couch with the Cheetos, the Cheeto dust and the crumbs saying I would have gone unbroken or I would have hit that 3-pointer, I would have done, etc. That to me, when people do 99% of something and then fail, I can't wrap my mind around it. I can't ever like I think back to some of the workouts that have ended with 135 thrusters in the open or in quarterfinals and someone fails the last rep. I'm just like, what happened in your childhood that made you this way? What the fuck? How could you do? There's no way you can't do one more. That doesn't make any sense. That's my ultimate. And of course, I can't even get to that point in the workout. I need to shut the fuck up, but I can't.
Yeah.
I just can't put myself in a headspace of like, I'm going to the CrossFit Games. If I do 2 more lunges, I dropped them.
Right.
What? There's no way that this is the exact moment. And of course, let's be realistic about it. Let's talk about how you would fix that as a coach or as an athlete. That is body language. That is headspace. That is belief in yourself. That is belief that you are deserving of that place.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot to it. But man, I don't understand.
The only one I'd really, really like understand is like double dumbbell overhead walking lunges where like your capacity of like holding something overhead is completely gone. But it's like, if it's just like more of
when it's really dumb to go unbroken and you try to, that is like that's one of those movements, right? I can totally understand someone failing their 14th or 15th muscle up if they try to go unbroken because it's like you shouldn't have done that anyways.
Yeah.
But like if they're cruising through 654 and they look beautiful and then they fail the 15th, it's like, please don't. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing this to me? Okay, so we will try to be quick. Maybe we will be, maybe we won't. Semifinals to CrossFit Games. I'm going to let you go first. This is obviously a big thing. And to me, it's it's almost like an extension of the same thing that we just talked about. But I'm interested to hear what you think makes that possible for somebody to do.
I think, GPP wins. Like, you gotta continue to build that base if you want to level up. And to me, a lot of it is the mental side of it, the psychological side of like body language means so much, belief in yourself means so much, confidence means so much. Like, it comes from experience in your training sessions and showing up on the days that you don't want to. Really committing to those good habits that you have. I think the biggest evolution for me has been the mental side for sure. I know I have the capacity physically to do the thing, but the mental side has come along for a really, really long ride.
Yep. Yeah, I think my mind goes to there as well because we could talk about the intricacies of basically just extending out those behaviors that we talked about before. You have to just become more maniacal about them, right? Like, okay, I do get 9 hours of sleep, but my circadian rhythm is fucked because I don't, I change it all of the time. Or like a lot of people at the point where you're having to do this level of volume just get sick of food and don't want to deal with the supplements and the weighing and measuring anymore, that sort of deal. So a lot of people are underfed, underslept, underhydrated. But those are very much the kind of things where you get to refine behaviors that you probably already have to get here.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest hurdle of the athletes that I have coached that should have made it to the CrossFit Games that never did was their mental game, 100%. And then, Caroline specifically, going from the kind of athlete that this is where fuck you me came from. Going from the kind of athlete that just couldn't get over that hump of like, I do belong here. And I can do this in this setting, to fully buying into it and executing and being able to go to the CrossFit Games, 3 times. That hurdle is possible. I think a lot of people think it's not. A lot of coaches think it's not, which is fascinating. I guess you got to see it to believe it.
Sure.
That can be part of it.
Yeah.
You guys just all saw it on a very grand scale with Jason Hopper. Some of the worst I'd love to talk to him about this. Some of the worst body language to winning the CrossFit Games is quite the fucking, so it's like possible to take yourself to that place. But if you don't believe that you can do it, that you deserve it, that you should do it, all of that, it's too hard to overcome that. The level of genetic freak that you would need to be to not believe in yourself, to not believe that you're capable of making it to the games and make it there, like, I don't think that exists anymore.
Yeah.
I don't think that's possible. But there's, I mean, at this point, every programming company's got a graveyard of people who should have gone that just never, came around to the mental side. Like, I worked with some absolute freaks of nature in my first 5 years coaching at a high level. And man, they had it rough between the years to the point where you like really feel bad. Like, not treated so well, growing up by, coaches and parents and things of that nature. But again, I've been through it with people that went through those same things that have overcome it. So it is possible. It is very much possible for you to do so. And honestly, like, if I'm going to have final thoughts related to the episode, we talked about movement efficiency, intensity, and weakness work being kind of the like main things that came to mind. But I think we've come full circle on the power of possibility thing related to the headspace. And you talked mostly, Paige, about your body language, and you talked mostly about your headspace related to this stuff. And I think that's really cool, because if everyone's doing, kind of similar programming and knows the tricks of the trade related to recovery and mobility and sleep and all of that, then what else is there to separate yourself?
Yeah.
And it's surrounding yourself with the right people to be able to get over some pretty big hurdles related to the way that you carry yourself and how you think about yourself, how you speak to yourself internally.
Yeah. Having a rough year in 2025, narrative in my head has gotten pretty cloudy, and it actually takes, like, if you are somebody that's stuck in that space, you can't be afraid to ask either. We've talked about McKenna with her injury and the surgery and all of that, and you just can't be afraid to ask or to lean on somebody. So,
Truth.
Yeah, it's definitely a big part of it.
Any final thoughts?
No, I think you hit it.
Cool. Did we do it?
Did it.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Misfit Podcast. And thank you to our show sponsor, GorillaMind.com/Misfit. Get you some whey, get you some intra, mix those bitches together, and you have protein, carbs, creatine, and electrolytes all together. And it tastes pretty damn good. I want to say thank you if you have made it 1 hour, 46 minutes, and 35 seconds into this podcast. The robots will chop out some of the pauses and my ums and ahs. But you've made it pretty far, and we appreciate you. A link in bio on Instagram to get signed up for any of our programs. Quarterfinals Prep free trials are still live. They will not be for much longer, so make sure that you get into that. sharpentheaxeco.com. Couple of rain or shine collection things left there on sale, and we'll see you guys next week.
Biggest bunch of misfits I ever set eyes on.